Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Cybersecurity 101, Protecting Your Business in a Digital First World, Holiday 2025 edition, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the expected large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the cyber industry specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome to everyone. And I hope everyone's holiday season has officially kicked off. And hopefully today, this will be a gift to yourself as a small business owner, as we're trying to navigate, end of year stuff and, as it relates to even cybersecurity and our business practices. And so I hope this holiday edition brings you the gift that keeps on giving. Next slide. So the agenda we'll just talk through, and my goal is to give you some quick and easy tips and tricks that you can use within your organization, but also to just have you just kind of take a step back and just go back to the basics. Look at some things that you currently have in place and some things that maybe you need to improve on. Then we'll take some questions at the end. We'll give you the contact information if you have any more questions or if you want to reach out to us directly. Next slide. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry about 20 plus years. I'm also a small business owner. I have had the pleasure of also working in a nonprofit. And so I'm pretty, knowledgeable as it relates to all things small business that we go through as an owner, as we're navigating, budgets and end of year and spending and costs. And as costs have increased on so many areas, I try to find ways to give you tips and resources that you can use, either low cost or that are free of charge, or there is a fee, just your time, just to learn something new about cybersecurity and how it can help your small business. So super excited about the role here with the Virginia SBDC. Next slide. So we'll jump right in and just kind of do a discussion around why does cybersecurity even matter, right? Why does it even matter more than ever? Why is it something that we're seeing more in mainstream media? We're seeing it more on our social media platforms, because every business, regardless if you're large or small, now operates in what I like to call the digital age, right? This digital first environment where we're using cloud platforms, artificial intelligence, mobile devices. We're doing a lot of collaboration, even if we're not in person anymore, we're doing a lot of remote collaborations. You've seen the, evolution of, applications like Zoom, where we're taking more meetings. And even, I know some things happened in COVID, but then even after COVID, right, we still were using a lot of these technologies to be able to collaborate, and even if we're in person or even remote. A lot of small businesses also use online payments, right, to operate your business, which is beyond like your physical walls. So cybersecurity is now part of your basic business safety. It's not just about you locking your office door or installing the latest and greatest security monitoring system for your organization. It also starts with things that you do every day. It also starts with training the right people. It even also starts with as early as when you're hiring new employees. How do you onboard them? How do you keep them trained? How do you keep them informed? it starts from the moment that that employee, or are you taking that new customer, or are you take on that new business role? It starts every time you make some type of change or you introduce a new change or just sometimes business as usual, right? Things that you are using in your day-to-day work that you're using to help your business. So cybersecurity matters more than ever because we're using it. We're using a lot of these platforms and mobile devices and most of the remote collaboration tools to be able to do business. And so it is definitely something that we need to take a step back as we're ending the year and we're getting ready for 2026. Like, what will those goals look like for our small business? Next slide. So, why small businesses are now taking a more, you know, proactive approach as it relates to cybersecurity because if you're watching the news like I watch, or you're getting social media feeds or however you get your information, 43% of cyber attacks now are targeting small business owners. What does that mean for you as a small business? You have more than likely a smaller team, which sometimes, equates to fewer defenses. And so attackers, hacker groups, all different type of nefarious actors are looking for ways to penetrate information systems, to find ways to, bring on new things into your environment that are some things like ransomware that where a single attack can cost your organization thousands of dollars. It can cause disruption. Sometimes it's not a monetary thing, right? It could be to tarnish your reputation with your customer base. And so sometimes it's something as simple as a simple email click. And where that is something that you can use as a small business owner, it starts with training. So you don't have to be big to be a target. You can just be a small business that may be taking credit cards, and maybe the end game for the hacker group is to get the credit card information, or it could be to get email addresses. They have different reasons why they are targeting certain small business. So as a small business owner, the only thing you can do is take a proactive approach to it and start training yourself and your staff on ways to protect your small business. Next slide. So again, why does cybersecurity matter more than ever as we close out 2025 and we're starting to walk into 2026? The other day I saw a headline that said we're days away to 2026. And I'm like, wow, so much has happened in 2025. And as it relates to just the digital landscape, more digital opportunities have presented themselves more than ever. Cybersecurity still remains one of the business challenges, and even for larger organizations. So even as a small business owner, I do a lot of work with larger organizations, and they have to definitely create ways to do to combat some of these business challenges. And one of the biggest things that we're always talking to them about is prevention is better than, having an issue and not being prepared for it, right? And even as the holidays, I had one organization that I support where we were on uh, 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 a, a meeting, and they were like, "Oh, sheesh, the holidays are here. We're slowing down more than ever, and maybe we can use this time to, start doing more planning for 2026. And, a lot of people are going to be on vacation. We can start, using some of our remote capabilities, and, people are going to be, participating in Cyber Monday that just passed, or some of the other holiday sales. And so one of the things I said, look at what you just said. You said we need to slow down, but this season also is a season where cybercrime is the most active because they understand that most people are traveling and most people are even posting, hey, we're going here for the holidays. And that says to someone that's trying to do something to try to do a cyber crime, or even sometimes just trying to do regular crime. My home is, not, no one's there, or this person is not at work. So let me see if I can try to gain access to, their organization. I see that they work for so-and-so organization, right? They understand that more people are going to be doing transactions even at work. And so they understand that more people, these transactions are going to be happening. So how can I, use this time to do crimes. And so even though it's the best part of the year for most people, it also is an active period for cybercrime. And so the good news, the one thing that you can do as a small business owner is to take a look at your current cyber posture and look at ways that you can implement certain tools. And it could just be starting with the basics. The basics can be, maybe I need to look at my password policies. Maybe I need to have a special session with my employees to talk about this time of the year. Maybe I can start a newsletter where I'm putting out tips and tricks for my employees, and maybe I can post different things, or maybe we can just start talking about this in our regular staff meetings. Those small little things, make the world of difference, because it's putting cyber security in the front of your employees' mindset, and then also for you as well as a small business owner. So sometimes that's just the basic place to even get started. Next slide. So let's talk about some of the top 5 scams small businesses see in December. Fake shipping tracking notices. I know even on my phone, I feel like daily I'm getting this fake notice that's saying that I'm having some, delivery notification. I'm like, wait a minute, I know I've made an order to, let's say, Amazon, but I wasn't tracking anything coming from print.com. This wasn't something that I put in, so this definitely has to be something that is fake. Or you're starting to see another one with the gift cards. They're saying, oh, the CEO or maybe another employer or someone is trying to give you a gift card, click here. If we haven't discussed that would maybe a way that we're going to give gifts this year. And even if it is a way, if the link looks a little suspicious, always say think before you click. We're starting to seeing a lot of fraudulent invoices. I had like 6 in my inbox today, where one was from an employee that no longer even worked in my organization. I'm like I went directly right into the hyperlink at the top where I saw where the message was coming from, and then I looked at the username was the person that used to work for my organization. But when I clicked on the hyperlink, I saw that it was an email address that was from a Gmail dot so and so so and so. So immediately I was like, okay, this is another fraudulent invoice. Holiday donation scams. I always say, if it's not from a trusted source or someone that you have given in the past, and even if it is, I mean, I'm old school. If it's something that I've been doing for years, I'll still pick up the phone to make sure that the link that I have in my inbox is correct, or the phone number or the contact information is still correct, to make sure that it's not a scam. You may get the end of year account update emails. It says, update your accounts, make sure that you're just doing your due diligence, and then train your staff to, never approve any financial or any other transactions over email or any type of business that can any type of business that you don't approve, or businesses that have sensitive information. If you're like processing, I have some clients that process healthcare data. Find a way to encrypt that data. Find another way not to send sensitive data in one email and not locking down that data in some form, or finding another way to get like the password as a second form of authentication for that email. But think of different things that you can do to at least, alleviate some of these scams that are trying to penetrate your organization. Next slide. So from as the holiday season started from Thanksgiving all the way up into the new year. So even as we're navigating out of Thanksgiving into the holiday season, into the new year, this is when the cyber criminals are relying on you to do just what we talked about earlier: increase shopping, that reduce IT monitoring, employees training, urgent end of year requests. So just be mindful of the requests as they're coming in, and then keep the conversation going even after the new year. Look at what you're currently doing now and find ways to be able to support if it's working, and if it's not, find ways to do something different that will help your organization. Next slide. Expect more phishing emails disguised as shipping notifications, password resets, billing confirmations, holiday donations, HR requests, gift cards. If something feels urgent, I need this right now, can you send over your banking information? It's probably a scam. I work with a lot with seniors as well, and they're like, I've got them down to a point where they receive a telephone call or email. They're like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. This seems like a scam. They wanted my credit card information. They're telling me I need to do this right now. I'm like, think before you click, think before you react, think before you give out any information. You have to just take the time. It can make the world of difference, especially during this time or this time of the year. Next slide. So a couple of easy wins. I'm going to give you probably 10 strategies that you can implement for your small business. One, I think I talked about this earlier, strengthen your password. Use the rule, 12 plus characters, 3 random words. What that means, it could be an example, something like winter coffee candle 27. That may seem like something weird that's just flying off your tongue, but I always like to do phrases of things that only I will understand, but I don't make it so stringent to where I lock myself out or make it so stringent that I have to write it down and leave it somewhere that anybody else can use it as well, right? So you want to, and also you want to implement, if you don't already have a password policy for your organization, avoid employees reusing passwords across multiple accounts. And then also, if you are a small business owner, or maybe you are just a party of one and you have work accounts and personal accounts, try not to use the same password for both. That's usually a rule of thumb, which is a great rule of thumb, especially as I know we're navigating sometimes between work and personal. And we're like, hey, I came up with this great password. I want to use it for everything. Avoid that if at all possible. And then also change your passwords. And periodically, I like to say about 90 days is a good rule of thumb. Depending on the nature of the work that you're doing, you may want to implement more stringent policy for your passwords. Even as far as the characters, they may even say use like some type of special character, or maybe using something like multi-factor authentication. Require password updates for any administrative accounts, and create a password policy that you can train your employees even on when you're onboarding them, that this is our policy for our organization. This is how often we change our passwords, and require them to, if you have the capabilities with some of the applications that you're using, you can also place settings where it ensures that they're adhering to the password policy as well, right? So you want to be able to use as many of the security features within the applications that you're using to make sure that you're, applying those policies, those within the applications that are things that you're using within your organization. Next slide. Again, another one, I think I talked about this earlier, was if at all possible, we all use multi-factor authentication at one point of our lives. I always like to use the bank scenario where you log into your bank account, you get a PIN, or you get a number or a password a PIN or some type of numeric number that you can place within the banking website, and then it gives you access. I know some folks use things like Duo is another one. Microsoft will have ones that are embedded. You can also turn those on as well. We've found studies over the last couple of years that a multi-factor authentication also help prevent over 90% of account breaches, because it's another like defense in depth. It's also giving you, think about like a lock on your front door. It's one thing to have like a regular lock that you have a key to, but think about putting like a deadbolt lock, or using a PIN code, or some type of another way to be able to get into the door. That's what multi-factor authentication gives you. It gives you another layer of security on something that you're currently using. If you can't use it on, I always think about, as I'm telling you what technologies or things that you can implement, I always think about cost. I'm a small business owner, so I get it. If you can do it for everything, think about prioritizing what email accounts should you, place multi-factor authentication, using your admin accounts or anything that that has sensitive information, banking, payroll, any accounting apps. If you're using cloud storage to store some of your sensitive file or data, or any type of your data, OneDrive, Google Drive, you can use those as well, and then turn on multi-factor authentication so that you can have another layer of security as you are, navigating this digital landscape. Next slide. Another easy win that you can do today is update your devices. Any updated devices is the number one security business vulnerability. Most 9 out of 10, when I see even larger organizations have some issues that end up on the news, is one or two things. It's either it was some type of social engineering attack where a person who had access to some sensitive information gave out information to a person or sometimes even a group of people that's trying to navigate their way into the organization. But 9 out of 10, sometimes it's just having outdated devices. And so if you have if you're using like point of sale systems or tablets for your customer checkouts, or you're using a laptop that's maybe older than 5 years, or you're running phones with old OS versions, make it a holiday to do to schedule a device update date for you and your employees so that you're taking a look at what you currently have in your inventory. And if it's not doing it during the holiday season, but maybe coming up with a plan that will update our devices to make sure we have the latest and the greatest versions of any products or services that we're using for our organization. Next slide. So another great cyber hygiene is putting together, I like to put together like a simple one-page do's and don'ts for my staff that has like cyber hygiene 101. And it can be everything from lock your screens when you step away. Don't use personal email for business files. Use a shared secure drive for documents. We talked about password management, or everything from, how often we change our passwords, or what should it be the, minimum requirements for a password. Do we use special characters? Everything from, updating devices. These are all things that you can put into like a simple one pager and share it out as a newsletter, share it out as an email, as just a simple, these are the things to watch out for. And then you can even add some of the things that we went over today. Like, these are things to watch out for. If you see, an uptick in, emails that are coming up that are more, related to spam, or you're getting a lot of different things coming to your inbox. This is what to do in the event that happens. That is definitely helpful, and it also creates a conversation that you can have with your employees, but also gives them kind of a guide or a one-page place where they can go to look at what to do in the event that something happens. Next slide. Great one. I think I covered this a little bit earlier with incident response. It's one thing to, we talk about what we can do to protect our businesses, right? But it's another thing to make sure that the people that we entrust with our information, our most valuable, pertinent information on how we operate and conduct our business, they know how to respond in the event of an emergency. If it's as simple as, if you feel like you're under attack, when to disconnect a device from Wi-Fi. Should you disconnect? Should you first? I always say the first thing with incident response is to make sure that you're actually dealing with a real issue. Is this really a real issue? Is this really a real problem? Maybe have a checklist that they can run through to validate that there's really an issue that's happening, right? And then what to do in the event that something happens. Do we need to change an affected account password? Should we have an outside team to notify? Should we notify our supervisor? Who should we not notify? When do we get IT involved? Them understanding the importance of reporting incidents as well is also very crucial until incident response and putting together incident response plan, but making sure they have something readily available. Outside of putting together a one pager, I also print out an incident response plan, and I keep it on a one page. It has everything from all of our major contacts that we need to contact in the event of emergency, what to do, who, and how to report it, what the metrics are, if it's something to report in 2 hours versus 4 hours, or something that we can wait for 24 hours. All of these things are very crucial to being able to, one, identifies if it's really an incident, two, to what to do in the event that something happens, and creating that culture where your employees feel very comfortable with, if they see something, say something. I know we hear that a lot from our friends at DHS, and it's true. If you see something, it's very important that you say something because faster reporting equals less damage, right? So the faster we can know what's going on, the likelihood that we can, get the right things in place to take care of the issue so that it doesn't become a small issue, doesn't become a great big issue of something that we could work through. Next slide. So outside of, the incident response and putting together the cyber hygiene 101 and creating onboarding employee awareness from the beginning, doing staff meetings, one thing you can do as another easy win is putting together a year-end small business checklist. And the checklist could be everything we talked about, update all devices, check, maybe putting a date behind it. Do you have master passwords? Do they need to be changed? Let's look at user accounts. Is it time to do a user account cleanup? Do we have old employees that are still lingering that we need to clean up? When is the last time our website's been backed up? When is the last time we backed up any data? Outside of doing backups regularly, right? When is the last time we tested those backups to see if they even work? Making sure that we have an inventory of things like when is our domains and websites? What are they scheduled to be renewed? So that we don't lose track of that. Do we need to enable multi-factor authentication? Do we only need to do it on certain accounts versus other accounts? Reviewing some of our vendor and contract access, even reviewing some of our service level agreements with some of vendors that we use for some of the things that we use in our organization. Making it a part of your annual business closeout is very crucial, and it's very important to do even as a small business owner. And it could be as simple as another one pager where you're just going through and creating yourself a planner of some sort that you can check off, like almost Santa. You're making the list, you're checking it twice, you're making sure that you're doing those things that need to be done. Maybe you can find things that are naughty or nice. But one way or the other, those are things that you can do, as we're closing out 2025 and going into 2026. Next slide.
I hate to interject, Kiana, but did I just take the slides down or do you still see them?
I see him.
Okay. And if anyone doesn't see them, just let me know in the Q&A. I was trying to double, multitask. And so, okay. So we'll go
No
back.
worries.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. No worries.
Hey.
I thought Santa was really coming to town.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So another easy win is, which I talked about, in the beginning, that giving you some budget-friendly tools for 2026, or even as you're in 2025, that are great for small businesses. If you are like some folks who are like, okay, I have a lot of passwords. There's sometimes the password requirements for some of the applications or things that I'm using are very complex. I don't want to write them down. you know, what other options do I have? Some, and I've heard both arguments on both ends of the spectrum. Some people use password managers, some don't. I'm not against either or. It's just really based on your risk appetite. But if you have to use them, here's a few that you can use. One Password is one that I've heard a lot of small business owners use. Security suites for Microsoft 365 is also a business premium suite that have a lot of security tools that are built in that you can use if you're trying to back up your website. Jetpack is one that I know that is pretty popular that a lot of small business owners use as well. If you want to do something like a VPN, you want to be on a secure session. A virtual private network is what VPN stands for. And if you want to use that, there are some great applications out there that you can use as well for that. Again, there are a lot of email security built into Microsoft 365, especially if you're using the online version. You can start there before you go out and buy anything else. But with anything that you're trying to use or introduce into your organization, make sure you do your research, talk to other small business owners, find out if things are working for them. I love to get into chat rooms and talk to other small business owners or other folks that are using these products to see. I read the customer reviews to see if it worked out for an organization that maybe has 10 people versus if it's something that works better for someone that has 100 people. Or I'm just getting started and I only want to spend $0 to $10. What can I use, just to get started, right? So think about all of those different things as you are making that checklist for your end of year on what things you can use for your small business. Next slide. And then we talked about things that are no cost, right? Just a little bit of your time, which is putting together policies. Keep the policy simple. Password rules. When should you use your device? Can you take your device when you're traveling? What to do if you are on travel and you need to use said device? Some organizations, they, deploy things like encryption that have to be deployed on your laptop. So in the event that you lose the laptop, that they have a way to do a remote wipe. Is that something that you want to use in your small business? If you have employees that are going to be traveling, do you want them to even take the laptop? These are things that we have to, create policies so that we're very clear about, where we stand as a small business owner to protect our assets and our customers that entrusted us to do, work on their behalf, right? Or provide a service to the customers that we support. Think about that as you're onboarding staff. Like I said earlier, I have policies and I make sure that even from training from day one, all employees are trained on cybersecurity basics 101. They're also trained on any rules of behaviors on what to do when they're, given a device. I have laptop policies. They're part of my onboarding, and even when they're offboarding, they're also a checklist item on my offboarding checklist to make sure that, I'm keeping the flow of how cybersecurity should be used or how cybersecurity is important to my organization, how we handle data. If we're going to be doing a monthly security update, like putting together a schedule, right? Maybe you don't want to do it in December because you have other priorities. So think about what your pending priorities are and put together a schedule and make a policy about that so that you can kind of, pre-plan on what you want that policy to, keep your organization afloat and also keep your employees in line to what your vision for the organization is. Don't make it too documentation heavy. It can be 1 or 2 pages to start off with. It's a living document and it should be checked and updated periodically. If you have policies right now, let's take a look at them, pull them out, and see if they work for you for 2025, and maybe look for things. Maybe this year we didn't, last year we only had laptops, but this year we decided to use mobile devices. Do I have a policy for that? Should I add a policy for that? Think about those type of things and keeping them simple, but also, reviewing them and making updates periodically is very crucial to keeping, your cybersecurity as we're navigating this digital landscape. Next slide. Another easy win about being prepared for 2026. A lot of small businesses start focus on, how can I use things like multi-factor authentication or strong passwords? Should I go to the cloud? Am I in the cloud? Am I implementing all of the, the policies and procedures that I need for cloud security? Am I doing things like email verification, making sure that my employees understand what to do if they receive, all different type of emails from nefarious locations? What do they do? Am I offboarding correctly? When people leave my organization, am I making sure their accounts are being deleted? Do I have even like a basic employee training? Like, how can I make cybersecurity a part of my daily operations? Just how I put together a wonderful business plan. Think about all these different things as you put it together for a cybersecurity plan. If you don't want to do a separate plan, I am from the school of I like for all of my plans to kind of be in one place. Even in my business plan, I added a section just for cybersecurity, and I put in all of my policies. And even if there was things that are pending, as I grow, what I will, envision for the company, I wrote that down as well. So just think about that as you're preparing to go into 2026. Next slide. So again, I promised some resources that you can have to use to put together. You're like, okay, Kiana, you just told me all these different things that I need to do for my organization, but I don't even know how to get started. I don't know what to do. Cybersecurity, I speak French, and you just told me something that sounds like Russian, right? So Don't want to overwhelm you with all the information. Definitely want to be a resource to help you. I told you I'm the gift that keeps on giving. So here are a couple of resources that you can use, or organizations that are definitely small business friendly. They have checklists and wonderful templates. CISA is a great resource. They have a whole cybersecurity corner dedicated just for small businesses, which I absolutely love. I've even, signed myself up for their mailing list to get everything from alerts as they come in, or different things that I need that is pertinent to the customers that I support. This is also another great resource. They have step-by-step guidance on to kind of help you navigate small business cyber issues or problems or things that you may face, how to put together those policies and procedures that we talked about. They even have some wonderful resources for training. The SBA has some great stuff as well. They have training and worksheets that you can use. If I was a small business owner and I was trying to figure out how to even put together a policy procedure, I would start here first. Also, I'll give us a shameless plug. Our Virginia SBDC website also have some great resources. We also have some great links to some previous trainings that you can also, at your fingertips on our website that you can access to use, as well as you're thinking about how to implement and navigate this digital landscape. We're here to help you. And next slide. Mm-hmm. So again, FTC is another one. If you are putting together incident response, I think we talked about that plan earlier. This is a great website to even check if your information was breached. They also have one if you are trying to put together a password policy that's very similar to this website as well, that you can check to see what is the rate of someone gaining access to your password based on the strength of what you put in. So that's a great one too, to kind of help me navigate, like, okay, if I'm using winter break 67 versus if I use winter break with a special character and maybe something else, like what's the likelihood of someone, breaking in or using my password or finding out what my password is. So those are great resources that you can use. Um, if you're just wanting to get started with a password manager, you have a smaller team, they do have a free tier that you can use as a password manager. Try it out if it's something that you want to use. They also have, more paid tiers that you can use. And again, I think I talked about this earlier. Signing up for the CISA.gov threat alerts. They give you current threat notification as they're happening in real time sometimes. And also, if you are thinking about planning, this is a great resource. I've subscribed to it and I get the email notifications, and it's a wonderful resource as well. Next slide. So again, cybersecurity doesn't have to be complicated if you're consistent, like with anything, right? If you are thinking about it as it relates to your operation, if you're thinking about, I put together this wonderful business and I want to make sure that I'm protecting it, finding ways to do that may seem like, oh, this is another big task for me to do, but it's not. If you just take the elephant, bite it take one bite at a time, be very consistent with how you, plan to implement certain things into your organization. You can always take baby steps. It's the baby steps that become bigger steps. Any step is in a step in the right direction and can also give your organization the protection that it needs. Remember, it's ongoing. It's always happening. So prioritize what's important for your organization. Look at what risks are associated with the business that you do. It's going to be totally different from maybe someone who is, a retail business owner versus someone who's a healthcare organization. So your priorities and how you safeguard your business may be different. So take the time to look at all the risks that are associated with that. And, stay safe, stay secure, protect your business, and, enjoy this holiday season, but don't get so relaxed that we put cybersecurity at the back. We want to put it at the front, especially during this time of the year when cyber criminals are at their peak. Next slide. So any questions?
We actually do have a couple questions that have come in.
Okay.
So the very first question that came in was, What's the most common mistake that turns a minor cyber incident into a major business shutdown?
Oh, great
Mhm.
question. So, and I'll be totally transparent, right? It all depends on how prepared you are as a small business owner and your employees. Because if they're not prepared to take on any type of incident, where it's minor or major, something that can probably be, taken care of or not made made something that maybe was this small becomes this big if we don't just take the time to make sure that we're trained correctly on what to do in the event that something happens. And so I always say, breathe first. Take a step back. One, ensure that it's actually an incident, right? Two, make sure you have a checklist. Make sure you understand who to call in the event that something happens. If it's something that's, outside of your control, if you have, like, I have like emergency recall roster or emergency roster of all the people I need to call in the event that something happens. Do the same thing for your small business, because the most common mistake is to think that you, just because of you're a small business owner, I'm not going to ever be attacked. That's the most common mistake. Whether you're small or large, cyber criminals they have a rhyme or reason of why they are, choosing different businesses to target. And so what you can do is be prepared. Prevention is better than a cure.
Okay, so next question is, what are the red flags that indicate an employee may have been compromised?
Oh, insider threat.
Mhm.
So if you are dealing with someone that you think may be what we like to call in the industry an insider threat, there's two things that you can do. If you have, depending on what you have in your organization, there are features that you can put on that are called user account management features, where you can monitor, but also put in features that to detect if something is happening in your organization. Like, for example, we have I have some users that have different safeguards up that in order for someone to send an email out is during certain business hours, right? So they put a security feature within Outlook that only gives you access to certain SharePoint sites or a certain email or even the email itself. um, you can't send or receive anything during certain business hours. So look at what you currently have in your organization. Find out what, security features that they have available, and look for anything that's dealing with, user monitoring, user account management, and see if there's things that you can put in place to detect and also to provide indicators that something nefarious is happening with that employee.
How often should backups be tested, not just created?
So depending on so two things there, if you create a backup policy, the backup policy should be should indicate how often you are doing your backups. You can do incremental backups, which is like small increments of backups that are doing of data that you're doing daily, or you can do some that you can do maybe on a monthly basis. I've seen people do it, on a quarterly basis. But I like to say a good rule of thumb is you should do your backups and you should test your backups as often as you do any updates for your organization. So I have a policy for my organization that all backups must be tested monthly or whenever a significant change occurs or something is happening in my organization. So that can be if I'm doing work where I'm backing up some client information and the client may come back to me, like maybe say within the next couple of weeks or whatever, I wouldn't wait a month to test that backup. I'm going to test that backup, as much as possible to ensure that the backup has not been corrupted and that I can have access to the backup in the case that I need it for my client, if that makes sense. So look at what you currently are backing up, and then create a policy and make sure that anyone that is has access to the backups or that are responsible for the backups are testing them according to your organizational policies and procedures.
All right, this next one's a little bit longer. For a business that uses hybrid or remote teams, what are the
Mm-hmm.
top, I'm sorry, what are the top overlooked vulnerabilities and how
Mm,
can we secure them without disrupting employee productivity?
that's a good one. For businesses that use hybrid or remote teams, what are the top overlooked vulnerabilities and how can we secure them without disrupting employee productivity? Well, two things. I'm very, very, very big on employee training, right? So if you have if you are onboarding new employees and as they're coming in and you are, explaining or you are going over what your company, policies, procedures are, and you are training even other employees, I think I said this earlier, if they see something to say something, to have that open door policy that your employees feel they don't feel scared to come to you, or they feel comfortable to report if they see something that someone is doing. So, like, I've had, employees come to me and was like, I saw that um, someone that was on the accounting team was trying to access a folder that was, designated for IT. Now, it could have been something as simple as they just, found the link and was, and wasn't trying to do anything nefarious, or it could have been that they was doing something nefarious, right? So the fact that I have tried to create a culture where the employees feel very comfortable to come to me was the first step. So if you do have, a business that use hybrid or remote teams, make sure that you have them sign or you go over what the rules of behavior for your organization is, and make sure that they understand that if they violate any of those rules of behavior, what will be the penalties, and make sure that you are very clear about what that is. And you can also, as you're having your employee meetings, that you're bringing that up in real time so that it's always front of mind. So the only thing that I would suggest is that this sounds like more of something that you need to do. One or two things, you can turn on some features for user monitoring, but also you can create policies and procedures that can help support what your organization's policies are as it relates to doing business with hybrid or remote teams, and making sure that your employees understand what those policies and procedures are.
And we have one last question. How can we protect ourselves from phone cloning?
How can we protect? So a couple things. If you are, connecting your phone to Wi-Fi's that do not have passwords on them, right? So think about that. So the opposite of being vulnerable is also finding things to protect yourself from. So lock your phone down, make sure you put the necessary security features if it's, encryption, or if it's, putting multi-factor authentication on your device, making sure that you only connect to websites that have, certain SSL certificates, have certain security. Those are things that you can do to be more proactive to make sure that your phone doesn't become vulnerable to a phone cloning attack. So think about like all the different, scenarios, and run those scenarios, and, make policies for them. Even train your staff about, make sure that you're not connecting your device to places where you can become vulnerable to these type of attacks. So again, prevention is key, but also making sure that you put in the correct security that you can protect yourself from things like that happening.
At the moment, we have no other questions. So I'll put out a last call for questions. And Kiana, if you want to give us some last words of wisdom, not that you
Yes.
haven't given us tons already, but
Yes. So as the holidays are here and where everybody's in, we're celebrating, think about, we want to make it to 2026. incident free. We wanted to, make sure that we are navigating and managing our risk for our infrastructures, and we're planning and we're thinking about like what, our business, what the goals we have for our business for 2026. So as I'm putting together my goals for, fiscal year 2026, one of those goals, is putting cybersecurity in in the forefront of how you conduct your business, right? And looking at what you currently have in place and using some of the resources and tools that we're giving you today and seeing how you can use that to strengthen your posture. Those are things that you can do that are low cost. This costs you a little time. So, as we're celebrating and we're going into a new year, making sure that we're protected and being proactive. I always like to say prevention is better than a cure. We want to put those things in place now so that we can have a successful 2026.
Fabulous. Kiana, thank you so much. No other questions came in. So thank you, Kiana. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. And as a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to this recording and to the slides, which will have all these wonderful resources that Kiana gave us. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBD resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. We hope to see you at our next session, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Take care, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
All right.